What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Movie Emporium's 2025 list of the most disappointing movies of the year. This is a list of movies that I necessarily didn't hate, but I just found disappointing in a lot of aspects, to be fairly honest. Some are worse than others, but I don't like to use like top 10 worst because there's very few films that I'll go see at this point that I want to see. Like, I'm not putting Minecraft movie, I'm not putting, stuff like that on the list because I clearly, hate those movies, but I'm just saying I'd rather put disappointing movies than the worst, I guess you could say. It's just how I feel. So be aware that I don't hate a lot of these movies. I just find them disappointing, some more than others, to be fairly honest. And this is a surprising list because there's two films on here I did not expect to dislike as much as I did. So be aware, it's a list that I feel is the most disappointing. You may not agree, which I'm sure some films you won't. But be aware, this is currently my most disappointing movies of this year. So there you go. Okay, so as far as number 10, the least most disappointing movie of the year was probably The Monkey, but it was still disappointing. Oz Perkins has put 2 films out this year and creating like 16 more others. I think the guy needs to slow down. I understand he's a very talented director. I think The Monkey is a very interesting premise. It's based off a Stephen King story. It has the idea of the monkey. Every time it's wound up, it kills a whole bunch of people or kills somebody. The premise is interesting. Some of the kills are fun, but the story kind of sucks. The half brother or the brother and stuff like that is really weird and not very well put together. And it's not saying it's bad. It feels lesser than, and I think the actors in the movie are kind of put in a predicament that aren't great. And I think it's a movie that just isn't. I like it. I liked it when I first saw it, but then I kind of fell off of it. And I just feel that for a movie that Oz Perkins put out, it wasn't as good as I was hoping. So it's at number 10. It's the most least offensive, disappointing movie of the year, but it's still disappointing in its own right. So with that said, that's number 10, which leads into number 9, which is this was a movie I was actually really looking forward to, Death of a Unicorn. A24 put this out, which is very A24 in its own right. This had Paul Rudd, Jenna Ortega, Will Poulter, Richard E. Grant, Tia Leone. It has a great cast of individuals. It kind of just doesn't work, to be fairly honest. It feels like a premise that feels very of a short quality when it comes to what it should be on YouTube or something like that. I think it would have worked there. But the idea of them hitting a unicorn, and then the unicorn is kind of like fighting back, and it tries to be humorous and it's not. It tries to be fun and it's really not. And for a movie that's offbeat like it is, and darkly comedic as it is, it's just highly disappointing, to be fairly honest. So it's an entertaining film. It's just not a very good film. So Death of a Unicorn is one of the most anticipated, or one of the most disappointing movies, I should say, of the year, and it's something I truly just wasn't on board with. So I mean, it's still an entertaining movie. It's just not a very good movie. So that's how I feel. That's at number 9 is Death of a Unicorn. So number 8 is Rami Malek has been in this downturn of a career so far. He did, the last Bond movie, No Time to Die. He won an Oscar for a movie he shouldn't have won an Oscar for. The Amateur is a movie I was actually anticipating, to be fairly honest, and I think it is a movie that is highly uninterested with being a creative movie. I think it's a kind of a mess of a movie. I think it's all over the place in its storytelling. I think Rami Malek is misused in this movie. I think Lawrence Fishburne is misused in this movie, and I think the ending is one of the worst endings I've seen this year. It has moments where it's fun. It has moments where, on top of the rooftop with the pool, I think is a lot of fun, and it's just a disappointing movie. It's just not a movie that is well put together, well structured, and it came out early in the year, and I expected more out of it, and I expected a fun, 2-hour movie, and I got something that I was bored by, to be fairly honest. It was one of those movies I saw early access, through AMC, and it is what it is. It's just not a very good movie. So number 8 is The Amateur, and leads to number 7, which is So number 7 is a movie I'm sure you may or may not disagree, or you may or may not agree with. Of course, Bong Joon-ho put out Mickey 17. I feel like this movie is just all over the place. Bong Joon-ho is a very talented director. He won an Oscar for a reason. I think this movie tries to be a political commentary of like, capitalism and socialism, and it tries to be a commentary on just the idea of like, bigger powers having, wealth and, inequality in the world. And I think it's a movie that has a very weird look from, of course, Robert Pattinson. And I think Jennifer Connelly or something like that's in this movie. And I didn't like this movie at all. I just wasn't on board with it. It didn't hit me. It was one of the most disappointing things I saw this year. I was really anticipating it, and I wanted to walk out, to be fairly honest. So I didn't hate it, but I just didn't find it that great. So number 7 is, of course, Mickey 17, which leads into number 6, which is... I was ecstatically hoping that James L. Brooks would put out a fun, entertaining film that he's only known for doing, as good as it gets in terms of endearment and broadcast news. The guy, he helped to kind of develop, of course, The Simpsons. And with this movie, Ella McKay, I was hoping for the best. But this movie has Jamie Lee Curtis, it has Albert Brooks, it has Woody Harrelson, Emma Mackey plays the main character. And it's just a mess of a movie. None of it makes any sense. It doesn't, the story just doesn't have any purpose. It doesn't have any drive. Julie Kavner pops up in this movie and she's fine. It feels like an afterthought. And James L. Brooks just doesn't have the power that he once did when it comes to his creative abilities as a director. He wrote this and feels like too many storylines all over the place. Jamie Lee Curtis comes out the best. And other than that, it's not a very good movie, to be fairly honest. It's disappointing. It has moments, especially with her brother and stuff with Albert Brooks and, of course, Jamie Lee Curtis, who is the highlight of this movie. But I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of this movie. So that's my number 6 most disappointing movie of the year, which leads into number 5, which is... Okay, Darren Aronofsky has been a very hit or miss director. I think a lot of his movies are interesting and creative, just not my cup of tea. But him going into like kind of a more interesting realm when it comes to comedy, when it comes to caught stealing, was something I was looking forward to. But this movie has a very talented cast. It has Austin Butler, Zoe Kravitz, it has Vincent D'Onofrio, Liev Schreiber, Regina King, Matt Smith. And it looked like it was gonna be a lot of fun. It's all over the place. It just doesn't make any sense. It has Darren Aronofsky's things I don't like about his movies, which is like the weirdness to it and just the nature of what it's trying to do. Is trying to be his most creative when it comes to the ability to with the audience and stuff like that. And I don't know. I really didn't like this movie. I was really disappointed by it. I was really anticipating it, and I thought it had a great trailer, but it just goes to way too many weird directions. It was just something I didn't gel with, didn't click with. Once again, you may not agree with me. That's perfectly all right, but that's where I land at my number 5. So number 5 is Caught Stealing, and number 4 we have... Now, with that said, this was in my top, I think, most anticipated of the year. It was Lee Whannell's Wolfman. I think Invisible Man is probably one of the best horror films in the last 20 years, similar to like It Follows. It's a different take on the Invisible Man, but this one it's definitely a January movie. I'll give it that. It's a movie that has some interesting ideas, but that last act and just kind of not being what you anticipated, it just was not a very good movie. I may get flack for it, but it just... the creature effects and like the laughable story and it just I don't know what Lee Whannell was thinking, but this is a movie that you could tell was very low budgeted, had some interesting ideas, was not the worst movie I've ever seen, but is definitely lower on Lee Whannell, who has created some really fun low budgeted horror films, I'll be fairly honest, but this was not it. So number 4, of course, is Wolfman, and that leads into number 3, which is... Now, my next 2 are going to be very controversial because I know a lot of people like these movies. This is one that has garnered very mixed response to the audiences and to critics. I am on the more disappointed side for Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein. I think there are some interesting ideas in here. I think Jacob Elordi was really good as Frankenstein's creature. I think Oscar Isaac is pretty terrible as Frankenstein himself. I think Mia Goth is fine. I think this movie is beautiful to look at. That's why it's so disappointing. I think it's beautiful. I think it has some of the best set pieces of the year. I just think the story is all over the place. It's way too long. It's very boring. I fell asleep watching this movie, or I was falling asleep. I should say, not I fell asleep. I will go back and try and watch this again, but I have no inkling to try at any point soon. Guillermo del Toro is way better than this, to be fairly honest. I know this is a passion project, but sometimes when he misses hard, and this is one of his like most disappointing movies I've ever seen. Yeah, I think Pinocchio, one of the most highlights of Guillermo del Toro's career, and this is just an adaptation of Mary Shelley's story. Should be a no-brainer. It should be right in the realm of course, Guillermo del Toro. But yeah, Frankenstein was it was disappointing. It really was. It was one of my most disappointing movies of the year. And that's all I have to say. You know, at least Jacob Elordi is really good as Frankenstein's creature. So there you go. So these are number 2, which is really going to be controversial. And that is... So Avatar, The Way of Water, I really enjoyed. It's not the perfect movie, but I had fun with it. I think it's a leap forward in technology and creativity when it comes to what James Cameron is doing. Repeating the same story beats, repeating the same ideas does not make a story good. Having great visual flair, which just has great set pieces and great action, does not make a movie well put together. And I know James Cameron will say what he wants to say about this movie, and he will curse people out, and he will do whatever he wants. But yeah, but there was so much material here with, you know, the Una Chaplin character, with the Fire Clan that is not utilized, with the idea that they go back to the same ideas of the whale hunting stuff, the ideas of like, you know, Quaritch, and who played by Stephen Lang, who's really talented. I was on the fence of even doing a review. I had some issues in the first of the year when I was able, or first of December when I was able to see this movie when I was in an unfortunate accident. So I really didn't put out a review outside of Letterboxd. This movie's not a failure. It's just half a good movie. It's way too long, like the other 2 movies are. It doesn't really serve any purpose outside of just being part 2 of Way of Water. It should have just been called Way of Water Part 2, but they had to call Fire and Ash because they brought in the Fire Clan. It's just, I don't like this movie really that much. It's disappointing. It's one of the really most disappointing movies I've seen this year because I had high hopes that, you know, James Cameron, who's very talented and clearly only puts a movie out every 7 to 12 years. I mean, it's a beautifully gorgeous looking movie. It's one of the best looking movies when it comes to its digital fidelity, but yeah, that only can take you so far. So that's how I feel. It's the number 2 on my list of most disappointing, and that leads to number 1, which I'm really, really sad to say, and we'll talk about that here. So I laugh every time I put Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning in my most anticipated list of the year because it happened like 4 or 5 times. That movie came out. I love that movie. It's not my favorite Mission Impossible. I think that still is Rogue Nation. But Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning was in my top 10 for a reason. I think it was actually 1.2 because I didn't even know if that movie was going to come out this year. I joke, but I knew it was coming out. But I was like, this movie's not coming out. And I saw it, and I love certain parts of it. I think it's very creative. I think it has the biplane sequence is really good. But having Jim Phillips' son pop up as the Shea Wiggum character, outside of bringing the one guy back that was in the first movie, is really creative. This movie just has no juice. It has no charisma. It really is a byproduct of Tom Cruise maybe needs to step back a little bit. The movie has great action, but killing off Ving Rhames' character was one of the worst decisions of the year. I know he has health problems, but I don't like the way they did it. I don't like anything about it. I really just don't like this movie, to be fairly honest. It's disappointing. I think it has great moments, but it's way too long. It does things that aren't really that interesting, and it could have been better. It could have been way better. So Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning is the most disappointing movies I've seen this year, which I'm sad to say. And there you go. That is the 10 most disappointing movies of 2025, in my honest opinion. So with that said, if you don't agree with my list, that's fine. It is my list. This is what I think. But otherwise, let me know in the comments below what your most disappointing movies of the year are. It could be stuff that I didn't list, which is perfectly fine. But let me know why. What was one of them that you didn't like? What was one of them that you liked? All that good stuff. But with that said, we'll go into tomorrow, which is the first of the year, which will be, of course, the most anticipated list of 2025. 2026. I hope you enjoy it. It is a fun list to put together because you never know what's going to be good, what's going to be bad. But that'll do it. I do appreciate you watching. I do appreciate you joining me for this year of 2025 for the reviews in 2026. But yeah, there you go. So with that said, if you like what you see on this video, hit the subscribe button to join Movie Emporium. Hit that notification bell, top to find what's coming next. If you like this video, awesome. Hit that like button. And as always, we'll see you guys on the next video. Peace out, guys.